Eyes in the closet. Eleanor was 17, and she wished her parents would treat her like it. She had a curfew of 11 p.m., and her parents still monitored her internet use. Because of this, she could hardly believe it when her parents said that she would be home alone until the next evening. It was their anniversary, and they finally dubbed Eleanor as old enough to stay home alone by herself. She eagerly waved goodbye to her parents as they loaded their luggage into the car. It was her first night alone, and she greatly looked forward to some peace and quiet, doing precisely whatever she felt like. Anticlimactic or not, she chose to spend the next hour mindlessly surfing the internet. She paused only once to go feed the dog in the backyard. The sun had already begun to set by the time Eleanor grew tired of the computer. Grabbing her favorite blanket, she moved to the couch downstairs to watch some television. The screen sputtered and then flickered to life, revealing the news network her father had left it on. It looked like some sort of breaking news story, but Eleanor quickly changed the channel. She hated how dark the news always seemed to be, and that was the last thing she needed to see on her first night home alone. She had just begun to settle in when she heard her little dog scratching and whining at the back door. She supposed it was time to let the poor thing in, so she made her way across the room and reached for the handle. She paused for a moment. It appeared she had forgotten to lock the door earlier when she had fed him. She could already hear her dad's long, drawn-out tirade about safety. Oh well, what Dad didn't know wouldn't hurt him. She pulled open the door, allowing Churchill, the family's Maltese, to gratefully make his way into the warmth of the house. Night had already fallen outside. She really had lost track of the time. Eleanor quickly closed the door, making sure it was properly locked this time. She then made her way back to the couch, where she promptly plopped back down. Once again, she found herself zoning out into the warm glow of the television screen. She was perfectly relaxed until a faint shuffling noise caught her attention. Something was moving about in the other room. Her heart began to race in panic. That is, until she realized that Churchill was no longer in the room. The silly dog had nearly scared her to death. Irritated, she shouted across the house, and the shuffling stopped. Satisfied, Eleanor turned her attention back to the television. It was a commercial break, so she began channel surfing. She stumbled across a news station once more, and the breaking news alert was still being flashed across the screen. Apparently, police had reason to believe that a serial killer was on the prowl in the area. Eleanor shuddered and jumped up from the couch. Nothing suspicious had happened so far that evening, but still, she couldn't be too careful. She made her rounds about the house, making sure all the doors were locked and drawing the curtains over all the windows. She got the passing urge to call her parents, but she knew that this was her first shot at staying home alone, and if she blew it, she'd likely be legal before they gave her the opportunity to do so again. So instead, she gathered up her blanket once more and made her way back upstairs. She changed into her pajamas and then headed into the bathroom to brush her teeth. She heard the slight thumping of something making its way up the stairs, accompanied by the jingle of dog tags, and nearly jumped out of her skin. That stupid dog was going to be the end of her! She heard the jingle trail down the hall and into her bedroom before quieting. She finished her nightly routine, and then finally made her way down the hall. When she entered her room, she found Churchill curled up comfortably at the foot of her bed. Strangely, his collar was missing. Well, she supposed it wasn't that strange. He was a pretty stupid dog, and he was always getting it caught on things. That's why her parents had invested in a breakaway collar, so he wouldn't accidentally choke himself. Eleanor sighed and decided she would search for it in the morning. She was far too tired to go on a scavenger hunt at this hour, so she climbed into bed and quickly found herself drifting off to sleep. Several hours later, she was awoken by a strange sound. A faint jingling. A moment later, her senses returned to her and she sat bolt upright in her bed. Churchill sat at the foot of her bed, growling in the direction of the closet. She felt herself go pale as she realized that that was where the jingling sound was coming from. The closet door was slightly cracked, and her eyes caught a slight gleam from the dog tags glimmering in the faint light provided by the moon peeking through the curtains. She released a muffled scream as her gaze fell upon a wide, gleaming pair of eyes from within her closet, and the jingling stopped. The breakdown. Stories of people or monsters in our closet link back to nearly as long as we have lived in homes. It would seem that it is a sort of universal fear, and therefore there are countless versions of stories of this type. Tales such as the boogeyman, the monster under the bed, the phone call from the serial killer coming from inside the house are all prime examples of this. Many people would say that these fears are irrational, and for the most part, yes, they are. However, from time to time, there really are cases of this nightmare scenario coming true. Such as a story that has surfaced recently about a 57-year-old man living by himself in Japan. He began hearing strange noises and noticed food and other items going missing throughout the house. He wasn't sure whether he was going insane or perhaps being haunted by a poltergeist, so he decided to set up a hidden camera to see what was going on while he wasn't around. He left the cameras rolling for a day and then proceeded to review the footage. What he saw frightened him. A short while after he left the house, one of the cupboards in his kitchen began to shake. After a moment, a strange woman crawled out. She went about the home, eating food, watching television, and doing other things, until several minutes before he returned home. His stomach nodded when he saw her crawl back into the cupboard, the very one that was right behind him. He immediately evacuated the house and called the authorities. He assumed that the woman was simply a burglar and had already left. However, there was no evidence of a break-in of any kind. This naturally led to one conclusion. The woman had been there all along. After a sweep of the home, the woman was found still hiding within the same cupboard. She admitted to living undetected in the home for over a year. So that begs to question, perhaps there really is something to it when you're home alone and you feel like something's watching you.